Hello students, so in this lecture, or the third part of the lecture, we're going to go ahead and talk about the obesity risk factor. If you notice right here, the first one ties into what we have just talked about um, as far as breastfeeding is concerned and alternative feeding is concerned. Not breastfeeding children definitely puts them at a higher risk for developing obesity down the road. And there's a reason for that, where there are taste preferences that do change at an early age with there's a locus of control that changes, and that puts the child at a higher risk for developing obesity down the road. We also see increased physical inactivity, and that again is correlated with the increased screen time. Children who have a greater screen time or a greater amount of screen time, that is directly correlated to not having enough physical activity within their day. So an example would be having the television in the bed example, because that would allow the child to have higher amounts of screen time and not enough exposure to playtime, going outside, and being more physically active. The third risk factor that I want to talk about is diet. Diet is, of course, a very, very big part of it. But the two things that in particular that I want to look at is the sugar-sweetened beverages and the portion sizes. So the sugary beverages, usually when we talk about that, we think of sodas. But the sugar-sweetened beverages can actually be extended to your juices as well, 100% fruit juices that are rather sweet. So when we talk about, an example would be, for example, orange juice. Orange juice, when we talk about it, that is very common for children to have in the morning time, also still has a lot of sugar inside. And then, there are other kinds of juices that have artificial sweeteners added to it, like apple juice and grape juice. So all of those are included in the sugar-sweetened beverages category. The second thing is portion sizes. We live here in the state of Texas, where portion sizes, if you go to any restaurant, are rather big. And not having an adequate portion size and consistently can definitely mess up the diet portion as well. The fourth risk factor that I wanted to discuss included the family factors, and some very specific examples include a family having dinner with the television on. If you notice, when you are eating dinner while watching TV, you tend to eat more because you're not aware of the sensations when you do feel full. Whereas when you don't have the television on when you're eating dinner, you tend to fill up quicker because you're aware of what exactly is going on with your body. And the same exact thing happens. Also, restaurant eating out more often, and that impacts the food's quality, its freshness of ingredients as well. And if you look into it, a subcategory of that would be the fast food and the convenience food, including prepackaged food that is really high in sodium content, really high in preservatives. All of that and restaurant eating are sometimes part of the family eating habits that often also get correlated with the increased obesity within a family. The last factor that I wanted to talk about was race and ethnicity. And although we would like to think that in a perfect world, those two factors are not necessarily correlated to a chronic health disease, but unfortunately that's not the truth. Our genetics also has some part to play within that. The last issue that I want to talk about in childhood is oral health. A lot of times people don't believe that oral health is public health too. Oral health is actually public health too. In fact, it is a significant issue among minority and low-income children. Poor oral health specifically has many negative effects, including impacting appearance, which then decreases self-esteem, socialization skills, subjective well-being, and then most importantly, the nutrition intake. When there is a excruciating dental pain and dental infection, that can definitely reduce the intake of the nutrition for the child and thus impacting their overall health outcomes. What we need to address is the disparities that do exist in access to care, and there's a very important policy focus for us as far as oral health is concerned. And that applies throughout the country, so nationally speaking, and within the state of Texas as well. We have a huge oral health disparities issue within the state of Texas, and our policy, and that should become the policy focus for some of our legislators, where we are increasing that access to dental care. The last topic that I want to look at in the childhood issues is mental health. Mental health problems can occur across childhood, And a lot of times when we talk about, mental health issues among children, mostly the most common topic is ADHD or perhaps, disruptive behavior disorder. But it is also important to note that, disorders that tend to more commonly occur during teenager years and even during adulthood, such as anxiety disorder or depression, other emotional disorders, do still occur during childhood as well. I really like this graph because it kind of divides the entire population into two groups. We have the dark blue bar that is the age group of 2 to 5, and then the lighter color that is from age of 8 to 17. And if you notice right here within the first two categories, depression and ADHD, even in the smaller age group or the younger age group from 2 to 5, we still see cases of depression. And a lot of times those are the outcomes when there is a parental figure within the household, whether it be the mother or the father, that is also suffering from depression. And then those symptoms are absorbed and internalized within the child, and you also begin to see the symptoms of depression within the child themselves. So if you notice right here, those are divided with the percentages. Over here, the percentage of children, so I would say about 2 to 3% of children within the age of 2 to 5 still suffer from symptoms of depression. Again, this is a great graph to look at as far as getting a whole exposure of how mental health is so widespread and occurs very commonly among children. Now let's look at the causes and the correlates of early mental health problems. And I wanted to sort of tie them back to three basic causes. The first one being a toxic stress level, increasing stress level. And that can be due to several things. It could be due to family situations, the socioeconomic background, that impacts access to care, that impacts availability of resources, the neighborhood, adversity, the type of neighborhood that the child resides in, and again, that impacts the kind of friends, the kind of people that you network with, the kind of people that become your support system. And all of that is directly dependent upon the income levels. So in a way, many of these stresses can be alleviated if the income level was to increase. The second cause or the correlate for early mental health problems is victimization, and that occurs on several levels. It could be due to neglect, it could be due to abuse, due to domestic violence, and that eventually, if the victimization does not stop, can lead to personality disorders or even usage or even substance use and abuse during the preteens and the teenage years, and that further will contribute to poor adult mental health. And the last one is maternal depression. We've talked about this time to time and have highlighted upon this, but now we see that maternal depression directly contributes to poor mental health outcomes for children. In fact, we have statistics on this. Maternal depression is twice as likely to develop mental health disorders among children and any other kinds of behavioral disorders. Furthermore, when we look at gender differences, males tend to suffer more from mental health conditions. In fact, male children till the age of 4 are actually more depressed compared to female children. And the male gender in general is more likely to suffer from early childhood mental health problems because of this sense of responsibility that they have, especially if there's an older sibling, an older brother that is being raised in a single parent home and has to replace a paternal figure. So a lack of father figure definitely enforces additional emotional pressure in order for the child to step up. And all of that will definitely lead to higher anxiety levels, which then can impact their overall mental health status as well. So altogether, in sum, early childhood is a very critical period for long-term physical and mental health issues. And public health policy really should focus on, our policy should focus on access to oral health care, access to mental health resources, access to resources and tools for childhood obesity prevention. Of course, public health policy has been doing a tremendous work and has been essential to our previous success, but it has to continue in order for us to meet new targets and to resolve more conflict areas, such as obesity prevention in rural areas and access to oral health in Texas. Now for this week, the peer-reviewed journal article that has been posted on D2L talks about the gestational weight gain and the risk of infant death in the United States. Like always, I would suggest that you write a 1 to 2 paragraph summary of the article, highlighting, the current issue, the key findings, the public health research, and the future directions. And again, this is not something that you have to turn in, but it is a great way for you to prep for your exam. If you have any questions in this lecture, make sure to contact me via email. Again, the MySFA email is the best way to contact me. However, I'll also respond to D2L email as well. Now we'll begin and proceed with our second part of the lecture, which is adolescent health development.